Hello, you are listening to FromMaclaytoZama. I'm your host, Karen Miller. This podcast is about the adventures of two women from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who worked for the U.S. Army at Camp Zama, Japan, from 1953 to 1955. Their stories are told through hundreds of letters written home. Episode 50, letters 165 to 169. The staff here at FromMaclaytoZama are so happy to present episode 50 of the podcast. We are planning to celebrate tonight with champagne and dog bones all around. Okay, the interns get the dog bones, and I'll see if I can find a human to share the champagne with me. I can hear the homesickness in some of these letters. Holidays away from family are rough. My favorite letter in this batch involves Peg's description of the new base commander and meeting this 4-star general for the first time. I hope you enjoy the episode. Letter 165 from Bern, written November 17th, 1954. Dearest folks, have we thoroughly covered Nico in our latest letters home? Again, it will be fun for me to compare Peg's letter with mine. Probably her impressions were altogether different. She was noticeably less enthusiastic about the temples than I, but I have some real good colored slides which I took to back up my superlatives. It will be fun to talk things over on that wonderful WWGH, when we get home, day, which Dad mentioned in his letter. We shared his letter with Gladys and were forcibly told to cease conversation while she read it. At least twice since then, she has said, "You'll be sure to show me the Fred stories when they start coming, won't you?" Popular yet you are. Last Thursday, Gladys and I celebrated Veterans Day by going to Tokyo. She hadn't even started her Christmas shopping at that time, so we did Takusan looking around. But before we went shopping, we met two of her Japanese friends from the office, and they took us to the Chrysanthemum show at Shinjuku Gardens. This beautifully spacious park formerly belonged to the emperor and was not open to the public until after World War II. There was not the quantity of flowers on display as would be seen at any U.S. flower show, but the arrangements were unique and the variety of blooms were displayed in different beds and showcases in a very different fashion. After walking about in the huge park for about an hour, we were all quite happy to accept Kei-san's invitation to tea and cookies at the tea house of a former high school friend. The proprietress was a lovely young matron dressed in the prettiest kimono I have ever seen, and although she could not speak a word of English, was a most gracious hostess. The cookies were stateside in taste, not at all like the ones I sent home. Later in the day, we took the Japanese girls to a late lunch at the American Rocker 4 Club, so you see the honors were about equally divided. We were very much amused at one of the girls who kept hurrying us about and repeating, "Come along now, we have much to see." Comes Friday morning and I'm back at work, and lo and behold, out of a clear blue sky, I'm offered a GS6 job up at Sendai. There's a 2-grade jump. That's a 2-grade jump, and of course I'm quite interested in spite of the fact that I would miss Peg and that it gets mighty cold up in that region. However, when all the fine points were ironed out, it seems I couldn't qualify because I have not been in personnel work for the minimum 3-year period which is required. Until a few months ago, the powers that be, civilian personnel section, could have waived that requirement if they felt I could handle the job, but a recent civil service ruling has tied their hands. However, since the offer of the job came from them entirely unsolicited by me, I was rather flattered, and when I told Betty Cartmel about it, she said that I could be very proud because they don't usually offer a person a job like that unless they know the person wants to change. She said that it indicates the wheels must be convinced I could handle a more responsible job than the one I know I have, and perhaps they will keep me in mind in the future. It's nice to know, but now that I have less than 8 months to go on my contract, most sections would consider me a short-timer and not be interested. However, we shall see. Saturday, Gladys and I went into Tokyo again and were really happy to see Peg. It seemed much longer than 3 days since we had been together. We had a real early dinner at the University Club and then went to the Autumn Dance review by the Japanese girl dancers who compared to the Radio City Rockettes. It was, let me quote from the usual Hollywood extremes, gala, lavish, spectacular extravaganza, and we were all a bit drunk from color and noise and lights. The stage is enormous, and long wooden platform-like wings extend far out into the seating portion of the theater. For one number, the girls came into the theater from the rear and marched down the aisles. It was all rather overwhelming, especially since in between these rocket-type numbers, we were treated to scenes from famous Japanese plays or stories, and the combination of Oriental and Western entertainment left me struggling for air at times in the effort to absorb it all. Once again, I will have to extol their artistic and unusual scenery and background effects. If one did not enjoy the actual performance, a bit of just looking at the scenery would be worth the admission price. Our next sortie into the entertainment world will be to the puppet show on December 5th. These Japanese puppets are famous the world over, and I'm really looking forward to the event. When I went over to the entertainment workshop to sign up and pay for the tour, Mr. Shirato explained that he thought the regular 5-hour performance would be too long and become boring for a non-Japanese speaking audience. So he hopes to arrange for us to go backstage and be given a special demonstration of the way puppets are made, costumed, manipulated, etc. Sounds interesting, nay? Remind me sometime soon to take you for a walk with me around the entire post. It is such an interesting place, and the more often I take to enjoy it, the more I appreciate it. Right now, the GIs in the office would yell their heads off if they could hear me say that, because they feel mighty harassed and put upon. The most recent of their afflictions being the initiation of a nightly bed check at midnight, done, no doubt, to combat the increasing venereal disease rate here in the command. Certainly, they are 100 times over limited in their activities compared with the DACs. But right now, I will have to agree with the hated saying, "You never had it so good." Don't, on penalty of my life, let Peg know that I said that. It is rank DAC heresy, but I like it here. Next AM, Mary Carrera persuaded me to go to Yokosuka with her today. I have leave which must be taken, so off I go. Deposit the money in my account, please. Love, Bern. Letter 166 from Peg, written the 18th of November, 1955. Dear Mother and Daddy, I had such an exciting day that I just must tell you about it. You know that General Taylor came over from the 8th Army to be CG, Commanding General of the AFFE 8th Army here at Zama. Well, all sections have been busily preparing briefings. Desks have been cleared of all junk. Orders have been issued for the proper uniforms to be worn by the military. Mrs. Taylor arrived aboard the USS Buckner yesterday, and we've all been waiting for the big moment when he visited everyone's particular section. Yesterday, we were told by Colonel Morgeson that he would be in P10 and TI&E sometime today. About noon, the phone call started between the front office and our office, telling our officers when to go up to Colonel Morgeson's office for briefing. They'd be halfway out the door, and Dottie would call again to tell them to wait 15 minutes. Well, this went on until 15:30 today, and at last our officers had their briefing. General Taylor must be interested in troop information because he stayed for about an hour. Major McLaughlin, our newest officer, was excused, so he came back to our office and took me to the PX. I'll tell you about it later. He and I came back from the PX, and by that time, Colonel Klein was with us again and was telling us about the honcho and what he said, etc. When a sergeant from PT-10 came rushing in and said, "General Taylor will be in your office in 1 minute." My golly, Colonel Klein stood at the door, and as General Taylor walked in, together with at least one other general and some various and assorted other lesser honchos, Colonel Klein said, "Ten shut!" And all the officers and Mr. Whipple stood at attention. I didn't know whether to sit or stand, so I unobtrusively as possible stood up beside my desk. General Taylor looked around and said, "This is a fine-looking plant." Colonel Klein said some Mickey Mouse, the appropriate kind, and General Taylor was about to leave. As he was on his way out the door, Colonel Klein said, "By the way, General, I'd like you to meet Miss Harnish." Gee, was I ever shook. So the general turned around and put out his hand, and I shook hands with a 4-star general. He looked straight in my eyes, and he has the brightest blue eyes. And I said, "How do you do?" I should have said, "Sir," but it isn't really necessary for a civilian to do so. My gosh, was it ever impressive. Then he walked out and I floated home, holding my hand out in front of me. Wow, I suppose it's not really as big a thing as I make it, but at least I'm impressed and I will never forget it. So here's a little aside. I looked up General Maxwell Taylor, and his official portrait even shows how incredible his blue eyes were. He became chairman of the Joint Chiefs under President Kennedy and was a diplomat during the Cold War. He was portrayed in the movies A Bridge Too Far, The Missiles of October, and 13 Days. And I think there's some controversy about him as well. Okay, so the our PX here at Zama, put on sale some upside-down cookie hat chairs. I think I told you that I was going to buy 2 of them on the Japanese market before I came home. Well, these in the PX are made in Hong Kong, and they're only $5.50 each. The ones over in the market are about $16 each. So I bought 2 at the PX. That's why Major Mac took me, because he has a car. I made like a housewife tonight and rearranged my room and set up one of them. The other one is on top of my closet. The room looks real cute and the chair is very comfortable, and I'm just tickled pink with this day. Lots of love, me. So for those in the family that remember this chair, it was always in Peg's bedroom beside her bed. I found one online from 1960 on the internet for $1,500. Okay. It was super comfy, that chair. I wonder what happened to the second one when she got home. I only remember ever seeing one.
Just when you thought she had left for good and gone, a light twinkled in his eyes.
So when is a person dead? The Victorians believed it was when breathing stops, or when the soul departs, when no one remembers the person, or when their name is no longer uttered. Coming in the fall of 2025, explore my father's side of the family. It also happens to be President William McKinley's. Join me, Lavinia, Katie, Elsie, Hazel, Blaine, and David for Deep Below, a new podcast by Cussewago Productions, available wherever you get your podcasts and at www.deepbelowpodcast.com. Letter 167 from Bern, written the 26th of November, 1954. Good evening, dears. Can you hear a faint strain of bagpipes, battle cries, and elephant squeals? Can you feel the hot India sun beating relentlessly down upon your fair skins? And you see the flashing smile of Gunga Din. Yep, I'm just this minute comfortably ensconced in bed after seeing the movie. The word ensconced is underlined. Dig that underlined word. See what Scrabble does for one? I must tell Mark and Anna. Are you still burping from the excess of good food? My Thanksgiving was very dull, but enjoyable too. Gladys, Peg, and I went to church at 11, then to breakfast. Peg joined Mary Carrera in waiting for their boss to pick them up and take them to his home for dinner. Gladys and I retired to our rooms. I don't know what she did, but I finished a couple of new magazines, took a nap, and some girls dropped in to chat. Then it was time to dress for Thanksgiving dinner at the club. Imagine a large, long dining room, longer and a bit wider than the church basement. The buffet equipment extended the entire length of the room, and what a delectable sight with the gleaming copper chafing dishes and salad bowls, and a huge cornucopia simply spilling over with fruit and nuts, and a huge cake with a farm scene of a rich and plentiful harvest set in tiny figures on top of it. 5 of us ate dinner together, and the one man in the crowd bought champagne as a special holiday treat. I like it, but I have a beer pocketbook. Zama played football in the afternoon, but the weather was rainy and damp, so I forgoed. Anyhow, you know what I mean. The pleasure of wearing a huge mum and seeing the game. It was so much more comfortable indoors. I've been very, very busy at work. That's why I don't have time to type a long, interesting letter. And when I'm reduced to writing by hand, you, father-son, imply that you can't read it. While Jackie and I had lunch at the clubs today, a most fascinating civilian walked in. A distinguished gentleman with handsome white hair and a goatee and using a cane. Daddy, please grow a goatee. You meet all the other requirements. All the room in their places from 25 to 105 were simply spellbound. Wouldn't you like to wield that same magnetic power without uttering a word? Nope. On second thought, you wouldn't like not uttering a word, would you? Now, don't sputter. You know it's true. Did you ever walk on a path of gold? On either side of our office building is a straight row of beautiful trees, maybe poplar? Right now, their leaves are a golden yellow, and since the autumn winds are pleasantly frisky, the leaves form a wide and thick path in a straight line. Who could resist walking through gold? Not this one. I just love autumn, and finding this poem of Emily Dickinson's adds to my joy. The morns are meeker than they were. The nuts are getting brown, the berry's cheek is plumper, the rose is out of town. The maple wears a gayer scarf, the field a scarlet gown. Least I should be old-fashioned, I'll put a trinket on. You see, I really haven't anything to say this time except I'm very well. I'm content with my lot in life, and very, very thankful for so many things I couldn't begin to enumerate, except to remind you again, I'm glad I belong to our family, and I love you both very much. Good night, Bern. P.S. The literal translation of sayonara, which we commonly use for goodbye here, is, if it must be so. Isn't that lovely? B. Letter 168 from Peg, written the 28th of November, 1954. Dear Mother and Daddy, this is a real bugger of a day. It started to rain and blow sometime during the night, and is continuing with Takusan rain and winds. My windows don't close tightly, so the rain is coming in through the cracks, and my room is very chilly, to say the least. But I'm bundled up good and warm in my bathrobe, so I'm not cold, and tomorrow I'll have some weather stripping put on the windows. Well, I had a fine week. Thursday, Mary and I went down to the Kleins for Thanksgiving, and we had a ball. We had the traditional turkey dinner, which was very good, but she did put sage in the filling. After dinner, we sat around and talked shop talk, but we left our hair down, and it was one laugh after another. Fine time. Friday, I worked in the morning, and Major McLaughlin and I took off at 13:30 to go to Tokyo to a party. The rest of them stayed until 16:45, but Major Mac had driven his car, and it takes hours to drive through the evening traffic, so they left him off early, and he took me along. It was a beautiful day, and we certainly enjoyed the ride. Then I had a manicure while he was getting dressed, and it was time to meet the rest of the folks. The party was at the Nakatsan Family Club, which is the loveliest nightclub in Tokyo and is very exclusive. They had an excellent floor show, not like the usual junk we see all the time, and the club itself was very modern and lovely. We had a chicken dinner, but it wasn't too good. There were about 40 of us, and it was nice to meet some of the people I talked with over the telephone, but their party was rather dull. No one wanted to relax because Colonel Margison, the wheel, and Mrs. Margison were there, and they are very proper, stiff, and staid folks. So it was okay. However, I was glad to see the club. Yesterday morning I went to the dentist, and I must have at least 6 fillings. My only consolation is that it's cheaper to have it done over here than back home, but I don't like the idea of going through that again. But I suppose I should be used to it by this time. Yesterday afternoon, Bern and I wrapped some Christmas gifts for folks over here and for Miriam and Isabel. So we got carried away with the spirit of things and opened our gifts from Miriam. Daddy, the pictures are just beautiful, and we're so proud of them and of you. They are excellent, and we just love them. Thanks so much. We know how much time you spent on them, and they're so lovely. Thanks a lot. That was a wonderful idea, and both pictures are now hanging above our beds. In the mail yesterday, we got a package of Easy Pop from Pete, and we're anxious to try it. However, and this is for all of you, the box was badly crushed and the string was almost off, so please wrap things very securely. I think they must deliberately throw them around. However, Mother and Daddy, your boxes have always arrived in good shape. We're going to play Scrabble and pop the corn some night this week. Please thank Pete for us until I thank her in my next letter. Believe it or not, I said no thanks to 2 men who called for dates yesterday. I told them both, very nicely of course, to call at least a day ahead of time for dates instead of the same day. So I have a movie date tonight with Joe Price, a Marine. I hope he can keep it, but since the weather's so bad, we may be restricted. He's a real nice person and has more sense than any man yet. The other one was Mac Duffy, but he's getting too serious, so this won't last. On Thanksgiving, Gladys Byrne and I went to church and then went to the club for breakfast. They had started the buffet, and folks, it was fabulous. They had a mammoth table just loaded with food, and the centerpiece was another table with a large cornucopia on it, out of which spilled bushels of fresh fruit and vegetables, and they were arranged around a massive cake that had a log cabin and people and dogs and turkeys on it. It was just beautiful. We had something grand to look at while we ate our poached eggs. We got Gladys a pocketbook for Christmas, and I'm getting Byrne some ivory figures. She and I went into Yokohama on Tuesday night to finish our shopping and saw some beautiful things that we want to buy. Trouble is, everything I see I want for myself, and I really must start buying presentos for you people. Nay? I also bought Kaneko a blouse, and Byrne got her maid a red cardigan. We're getting hungry for the Christmas goodies. We know that you sent us, so maybe the box will arrive this week. I hope. I don't know where we'll be for Christmas, but we aren't going away for the whole weekend. Since we only have the 2 days, it doesn't give us much time for a trip. So we might stay in camp or go to Tokyo or Yokohama for the day. I'm just glad that this will be our last Christmas over here instead of our first. I'm going to bring this to a close now and go over to Byrne's room where it's warmer. She's invited to the Lockwoods for supper, so I'll just take 40 winks in her bed. Take care of yourselves and have fun. When I get your letter tomorrow, I may drop you a line tomorrow night to make comments. Taco-san love, Peggy-san. P.S. I just read over the letter, and my handwriting is horrible, isn't it? I can assure you, yes, it is. It is horrible. Letter 169 from Peg, written the 29th of November, 1954. Dear Mother and Daddy, hi. You'll probably get 2 letters the same day because I forgot to mail the letter I wrote you yesterday. Consequently, the 2 of them will be mailed tomorrow. Well, you Jules, we received a box today just crammed with all sorts of goodies and a package for Byrne and 2 packages of stockings. We opened the stockings because we're both desperately in need of them, and thanks so much. I'm even wearing unmatched stockings, so you know how much I appreciate the 2 new pairs of them. We deliberately waited until after supper to open the box because we knew there would be cookies in it, and we just had to eat a meal first or we wouldn't have had any left for our Christmas party. However, we did sample them, and they are just heavenly, besides looking like picture book cookies with the decorations on them. The pickles look so tempting, as does everything else, but I shall be strong. I'll weaken in about half an hour, though. You can just bet. The candles are real cute, and we'll use them as decorations for our party. The box arrived in very good condition, and you people sure know how to pack things for overseas shipment. Thanks again for everything. I must stop thinking about it because I'm drooling. I got your letter today, Mother, saying about our trip to Nikko. I sometimes wonder how you all pronounce the names, phrases, words, etc. that we write. Most people that have never heard of Camp Zama before pronounce it Zama, like in camp. It's really pronounced Zama. How do you pronounce it? You know, of course, that we'll probably bust laughing when you pronounce Japanese words to us when we get home, brats that we are. But if I know my Papa-san, he'll rattle off a string of lingo that would even amaze the natives. That's one passing thought. Now I'll read farther on in your letter and comment some more. Glad to hear that Barb is okay, but I sure wish she'd write more often. And we're both convinced that we won't know Nancy when we get home. Have Betts and Emmett spent their money yet? I'm glad Pete liked the pearls, but tell her not to spend a lot for a setting because they really didn't cost very much. I think it's cute. It's a cute idea too. Don't you know? Which gives me another terrific idea for some presentos, but I ain't gonna tell. We're invited to a sayonara party tomorrow for Sumiko, a Nisei girl who's going home to Philadelphia on Saturday. Boy, would I like to be in her shoes. However, I have Takusan junk to buy yet, and it will take me till July to get it, so I'm not quite ready to come home. Joe Price didn't come over to the movies last night because the weather was so horrible, and he had a flight to Korea in the morning at 0600, which meant he had to get up at 0500. We had a nice chat on the phone, though, and he's a real fine person. The weather was beautiful today, so I forgot about calling to get my windows fixed. Oh well, I'll remember it next time we have high winds. Lacking reading material and having finished my weekly girl chores, I even washed out a pair of stockings myself. Good heavens. I'm going to work on my scrapbook. Loads of love and kisses. Good night, Peg. Thanks for everything. So the weather that they describe continues to intrigue me. Yokohama is the same latitude as where I live in North Carolina, but it seems to have the extremes of cold of our mountains and the heat in our southern coastal areas. Peg describes some chairs she bought in Japan, and I was just thinking about how their time in Japan influenced their surroundings and their decorating style for the rest of their lives. I was remembering a black lacquer box that Peg kept on her dresser. I assume she stored jewelry in it, but I don't know for sure. It was very pretty. So this episode completes season 3 for the podcast. Expect season 4 episodes at the beginning of November in 2025, along with episodes of our new podcast, Deep Below. Deep Below is about my father's family, told through letters and journals. There are stories I can't wait to share with you. Have a great week. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if you are, please subscribe in Spotify. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus button in the top right-hand corner and rate. This will help my listeners find my podcast more easily. You can access the show's website at www.FromMaclaytoZama.com, where I posted photos and links from the episodes. The podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Patreon, and Amazon as well. New episodes will be available each Friday morning. The letters were written by my aunts Vern and Peg, transcribed by me. I write and record the show and have created the artwork and original music. Our producer is Zeke, our sound engineer is intern Sylvie, and the security is provided by intern Frey. Thanks to my great-grandparents, John and Helen, who loved us all and thought it was a good idea to save the letters. All rights reserved, 2024.